The heavy gray sky seemed to press down on everything as Adam stood by his mother's grave. The wind howled through the trees, a cold chill sweeping across the cemetery. The sound of footsteps in the gravel caught his attention. He turned and saw him, the man in the black suit. Adam had never seen him before. His mother had always kept to herself. Who was he? The stranger's eyes met Adam's, and there was something unsettling about his calm expression. The man didn't smile, but his gaze lingered, almost as if he recognized Adam. "You don't know me, do you?" The stranger asked, his voice low and steady. Adam shook his head slowly, confused. "No, I don't." "Who are you?" The stranger took a step closer. His footsteps crisp against the stones beneath him. Adam's heart began to race. There was something about this man that made him uneasy, but he couldn't put his finger on it. "I'm someone who knew your mother well," the man said, his voice oddly soft. "But she never told you about me, did she?" Adam frowned. His mother had always been private. Who could this man be? And why was he here now, of all times? Before we dive into this shocking story, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe. The stranger's words hung in the air, like a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Adam wanted to ask more questions, but the moment felt fragile. Like any wrong word could shatter everything. The wind picked up again, rustling the leaves on the trees as if nature itself was waiting for the next piece of the story to unfold. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time," the man continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother and I shared something important. She never told you, but now you deserve to know." Adam's mind raced. What could this man possibly be talking about? The man's face softened, and for a moment, Adam saw a flicker of pain in his eyes. "I promised her I would never tell you until the right time," he said. Adam took a step back. "What are you talking about? Why are you telling me this now?" His voice cracked as he spoke. The grief from losing his mother felt like a weight that grew heavier with each passing second. The man looked around, his gaze drifting nervously toward the edge of the cemetery. "Because, Adam, the time has come. You need to know the truth. About your family. About what really happened." The man's words sent a chill down Adam's spine. What truth? What had his mother hidden from him? For as long as Adam could remember, his mother had been the only family he had. They had been close, and he had trusted her completely. But now, doubts began to creep in. What if there had been more to his mother's life than he had ever known? Adam could feel his heartbeat in his chest, his pulse quickening. "What truth?" he asked again, this time with more urgency. The man leaned in closer, his breath steady. "You're not who you think you are, Adam. You have no idea what your mother was hiding from you." Adam's mind reeled. He took a step back, his legs suddenly feeling weak. "What do you mean? Who am I really?" The stranger's eyes locked onto his, intense and unblinking. "Your mother, she wasn't just your mother. She was a part of something bigger. Something dangerous." Adam could barely process the words. What was this man talking about? "No," he whispered. "That's not possible. My mother, she was just a regular woman. She was kind." The stranger's eyes darkened. "She wasn't always who you thought she was, Adam. She made choices. Big choices." Adam felt as though the ground was slipping from beneath him. His mother, a regular woman, had made big choices. What could that mean? His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the man's cryptic words. "What kind of choices?" he asked, his voice trembling. The stranger took a deep breath before answering. "She made a promise long ago, a promise that tied her to a group of powerful people. People who would stop at nothing to protect their secrets." The air felt colder now, the wind picking up as if nature itself was growing restless. Adam's thoughts spun, each word from the stranger pulling him deeper into confusion. The stranger paused, studying Adam carefully. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, almost reassuringly. "But you need to understand the truth, Adam. It's the only way you'll ever be free." Adam wanted to argue, to tell the stranger to leave, but something in the man's voice kept him rooted to the spot. "Why should I believe you?" Adam asked, his voice shaking with disbelief. The man's eyes softened. "Because your mother asked me to tell you before it was too late. She knew you'd be the one to uncover the secret. She knew you'd be the one to finish what she started." Adam felt his heart hammering in his chest. This was too much. His mother, the woman who had raised him, had kept this secret from him his entire life. Why? What could possibly be so important that she couldn't tell him? The stranger seemed to sense Adam's turmoil and gave him a moment to process. "You're not alone in this, Adam," the man said gently. "There are others who know the truth. Others who can help you." Adam clenched his fists, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. He wanted answers, but the truth felt like a weight too heavy to bear. Adam stood there, frozen, as the wind howled around them. The stranger's words echoed in his mind, growing louder with each passing second. He had to make a choice, face the truth or walk away. But deep down, Adam knew that walking away wasn't an option. He took a deep breath, his voice steady as he spoke. "What do I need to do?" The stranger's eyes flickered with a hint of approval. "First, you have to trust me. And second, you have to follow the path your mother set for you. Only then will you understand." The stranger led Adam through the cemetery, his footsteps soft but firm. The air was thick with tension, every step feeling like a journey into the unknown. Adam's mind was spinning. What path? What had his mother been involved in? What was the secret? As they reached the edge of the cemetery, the man stopped and turned to Adam. "This is where it begins," he said. "You're about to discover the truth about your family, and about yourself." The stranger handed Adam a small, weathered envelope. It was old, the edges frayed, as if it had been tucked away for years. "Open this when you're ready," the man said, his voice low. Adam held the envelope in his hands, the weight of it heavy. What could possibly be inside? Adam stared at the envelope, his hands trembling as he held it. The paper felt fragile, as though it might crumble with the slightest touch. He could feel the weight of his mother's secret pressing on him, and for a moment, he hesitated. What if he wasn't ready to know? What if the truth was too much to bear? The stranger's voice broke through his thoughts. "You'll never be ready, Adam. But you'll never find peace until you know." With a deep breath, Adam ripped open the envelope. Inside, there was a single piece of paper, yellowed with age. He unfolded it carefully and began to read. The letter was written in his mother's familiar handwriting. As Adam read the words, a chill ran down his spine. It was a confession. His mother had been part of something dangerous, a secret group that controlled powerful resources. She had promised to protect Adam, to shield him from this world, but now it seemed that the world was closing in on him. The letter ended with a single sentence: "When the time comes, trust no one but yourself." Adam's heart pounded in his chest. His mother had known something terrible was coming. She had kept him safe all these years. But now, it was his turn to face whatever it was. Adam crumpled the letter in his hand, frustration bubbling up inside him. What does it mean? Who was she protecting me from? The stranger's eyes narrowed. There are many forces at play here, Adam. Your mother was caught in a battle she couldn't win, but she fought for you. That's why she kept you away from it all. Adam's mind raced. He had always thought his mother was just a quiet, ordinary woman. But this? This was something he couldn't understand. The stranger stepped closer, lowering his voice. You need to be careful. The people she was trying to protect you from are still out there. As Adam processed the stranger's words, a distant sound reached his ears, car tires crunching on the gravel road. His eyes widened. Someone was coming. The stranger grabbed Adam by the arm. We have to go. Now. Adam didn't question it. He knew they didn't have time. They ran, their footsteps pounding against the ground, as the sound of approaching cars grew louder. Adam's breath was shallow, his pulse racing. Who was chasing them? Why was the world suddenly so dangerous? The stranger led Adam to a small, abandoned cabin hidden deep in the woods. The sound of the cars grew fainter as they reached the door. Adam's heart was still pounding in his chest, but he couldn't stop now. Not when the truth was so close, inside the cabin. The air was stale, and dust covered everything. The stranger immediately went to a small wooden chest in the corner and opened it, pulling out a stack of papers. "These will tell you everything you need to know," he said, handing them to Adam. Adam flipped through the papers, his eyes scanning each page quickly. It was all about his mother, about her life before he was born, and the choices she had made. There were names he didn't recognize, strange symbols, and references to a hidden society that controlled powerful businesses and people, but one thing caught his eye: an old, leather-bound diary. It was his mother's handwriting again. He opened it, reading her words as they filled him with a mixture of shock and sadness. She had known this day would come, and she had prepared him, though he had no idea. As Adam read through the diary, his stomach churned. There were entries about betrayal, about people she had trusted, people who had turned on her. The names in the diary seemed so familiar, yet they meant nothing to him. The more he read, the more Adam realized that his mother's life had been a tangled web of secrets. "She wasn't just protecting you from them," the stranger said, watching Adam carefully. "She was protecting you from yourself." Adam looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" The stranger's expression grew somber. "You're a part of this, Adam. Your blood ties you to it. Your mother kept you safe all these years because she knew what you could become if you knew too much too soon." Adam stood still, his mind reeling. His blood? What did that even mean? "You're not just anyone," the stranger continued. "You are the key to this whole mystery. The future of this group, and the power they seek, lies with you." Adam's head spun. He could barely breathe. The idea that his mother had kept him away from all of this to protect him felt like a betrayal in itself. What had he been protected from? What did this all mean for him? The stranger watched him closely. "You're stronger than you think. Your mother knew you had the power to change everything." Adam took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I don't want this power. I just want to know the truth." The stranger's eyes flickered with understanding. "You'll have to decide soon, Adam. You can walk away from this and live your life, but that will only bring more danger. Or you can embrace your past, your future, and fight for what's right." Adam felt like he was suffocating. Everything was coming at him too fast. But one thing was certain: he couldn't turn back. "I'll do it," Adam said, his voice firm. "I'll find out what this all means, and I'll finish what my mother started." Just as Adam made his decision, the door of the cabin slammed open. Two figures stood in the doorway, their faces masked. The stranger pushed Adam back, drawing something from his jacket. "Get down!" he shouted. Adam dropped to the floor, his heart racing. "Who were these people? We've been looking for you, Adam," one of the figures said, their voice cold. "It's time you came with us." The stranger fired a warning shot into the air. "You won't take him," he shouted. Adam scrambled to his feet, grabbing the nearest object for defense. The figures didn't move. They simply stood, waiting. "Adam," the stranger said urgently. "This is your chance. Run. Now." Adam didn't think twice. He bolted toward the back of the cabin, pushing through the brush and into the woods. Adam ran as fast as he could, branches slapping against his face and thorns scratching his skin. He could hear the sound of footsteps behind him, closer now. They were getting closer. But he couldn't stop. Not now. Not when the truth was within his grasp. Adam's legs burned, but he didn't dare stop. The trees around him blurred, and the night air stung his face. Every step felt heavier as he pushed through the dense forest, but his mind was clearer than ever. He had made a decision. He was going to find the truth, no matter what it took. Suddenly, he reached a fork in the path. To the left, the trail seemed to lead deeper into the woods. To the right, it opened up into a clearing where the moonlight revealed a small, abandoned house. Adam hesitated, listening carefully. The footsteps were still close behind. He could hear them crashing through the underbrush. Getting louder, he had no choice. Adam turned right and sprinted toward the house, the house was run down, its windows shattered and its door barely hanging on its hinges. Adam didn't care. He rushed inside, the wooden floor creaking under his feet. His heart raced in his chest as he darted from room to room, looking for anything that might help him. In the back corner of the house, he spotted a trapdoor hidden beneath a rug. Without a second thought, he yanked it open and climbed down into the dark cellar below. The air was damp, and the only sound was his heavy breathing. Adam held his breath and listened for any sign of pursuit. Nothing. They hadn't followed him. For now, he was safe. Adam's eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness as he looked around the cellar. Cobwebs lined the corners, and the air was musty with the smell of old wood. But something caught his attention, a faint glimmer of light from behind a stack of crates. Adam moved closer, pulling away the crates with all his strength. What he found made his heart stop. A small, hidden passageway lay before him, its entrance barely visible under the piles of dust and old boxes. It looked like it led deeper underground, and Adam could feel that this was no ordinary passage. It was a secret. And it was connected to the mystery of his mother's past. Without thinking twice, Adam stepped forward and entered the dark tunnel. The passage was narrow, and Adam had to crouch to avoid scraping his head on the low ceiling. He felt the walls as he moved, trying to stay steady in the pitch black. His pulse quickened with each step. Where was this leading him? What was at the end of the tunnel? Finally, after what felt like forever, the tunnel opened up into a large, dimly lit room. The walls were lined with shelves, filled with strange objects Adam didn't recognize. Maps. Old books. Files. It looked like some kind of secret library. And at the center of the room, a large desk sat beneath a flickering light. Adam approached the desk cautiously, his breath shaky. This was the moment. The answers he had been searching for were here. As Adam dug through the papers on the desk, one file stood out. It was labeled with his mother's name, and as soon as he opened it, he saw her handwriting again. His mother had been involved with something much bigger than he had imagined. She had worked with a group of powerful people, but they had betrayed her. The file contained information about his father, someone his mother had never spoken of. There were photos of him, Adam's father, who he had never met, and notes detailing his role in this shadowy world. His father had been a leader in the group, but something had gone wrong, and he had disappeared when Adam was just a baby. His heart pounded. The truth was uglier than he could have imagined. His family's involvement in this dangerous world was deeper than he ever knew. Suddenly, Adam heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps above him. The same footsteps from earlier. He didn't have much time. He had to make a decision, stay and search for more answers, or leave and escape with what he knew so far. The door to the cellar creaked open, and Adam could hear voices echoing through the floorboards. They were close. Too close, Adam's mind raced. He couldn't risk getting caught now, not with all this information. He quickly gathered the most important files and stuffed them into his jacket, just as the footsteps grew louder. There was no time to waste. He turned and ran back down the passage. Retracing his steps through the narrow tunnel, the house above him groaned as he sprinted toward the exit. As he pushed the trapdoor open, he could see shadows moving in the moonlight. They were almost here. Adam scrambled out of the cellar, making sure to stay low, and dashed for the edge of the woods. He couldn't let them catch him now. As Adam reached the edge of the forest, he saw the stranger waiting for him. His face was grim, and his eyes were scanning the trees for any sign of pursuit. Adam ran up to him, breathless. "They're coming for me," Adam said, his voice shaky. "I can't stop them." The stranger looked at him, his expression unreadable. "You've uncovered part of the truth. But the real enemy is still out there. You have no idea who you're up against." Adam's hands clenched into fists. "Who are they? Why are they after me?" The stranger hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. "The people who are chasing you are part of the same group your mother tried to escape from. They want to control everything, including you." Adam's mind reeled. The people after him were the same ones who had hurt his mother. The ones who had tried to take control of his life. They had used his family, betrayed them, and now they were coming for him. "What do I do now?" Adam asked, his voice barely a whisper. you fight back, the stranger said, his voice firm. You have to be ready to face them head-on. You're stronger than you think, Adam. Your mother didn't hide all this from you to leave you powerless. You have everything you need to stop them. Adam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision. He couldn't run anymore. He had to fight. For his mother. For himself. All right, Adam said, his voice steady. I'm ready. Let's take them down. The stranger nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Good. The first step is to get to the heart of their operation. And that's exactly where we're headed. With that, they turned and disappeared into the night, ready to face the darkness that lay ahead. Adam's heart pounded as he followed the stranger through the thick woods. The darkness pressed in around them, and every rustling sound seemed like a warning. His mind was racing with questions, but the stranger didn't speak. He led Adam through the forest as though he knew every inch of it, his steps quiet and purposeful. Who are you? Adam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The stranger didn't answer immediately, his eyes scanning their surroundings. Finally, he stopped and turned to Adam, his gaze intense. My name is Samuel. I knew your mother. She was part of a group that worked against the very people chasing you. But they betrayed her. She tried to protect you, Adam. You have no idea how much danger you're in. Adam felt a chill run down his spine. His mother had been more than just a mom. She had been part of something much bigger, something dangerous. Samuel led Adam to a hidden cabin deep in the woods. It looked old, its walls covered in ivy, but it was sturdy. The door creaked open as Samuel unlocked it, and the two stepped inside. The air was musty, filled with the scent of old wood and earth. Inside, maps covered the walls, and several large crates were stacked in the corners. A dusty table sat in the middle of the room, covered in papers and photographs. This is where your mother and I worked, Samuel said, his voice low. This was her safe house. And now, it's yours. The people after you, they're after everything you're about to learn. Adam's eyes scanned the room. Why didn't you tell me any of this sooner? Samuel shook his head. You weren't ready. But now, the truth is out, and you have to be prepared for what's coming. As Adam moved closer to the table, he noticed a file with his mother's name on it. The handwriting was familiar, and he felt his hands tremble as he opened it. Inside, there was a letter. It read, Adam, if you're reading this, then I failed. I couldn't protect you from the truth. But I hope, for your sake, you'll use this information to stop them. The key is in the files I've hidden. Find them, and you will have the power to defeat them. Adam's eyes widened. His mother had left him clues, hidden away in places he had never imagined. But where were the files? What was the key she had spoken of? Samuel noticed Adam's frustration. The files your mother mentioned, she kept them hidden. They're not here, but I know where they are. Adam's pulse quickened. Where? Tell me. Samuel hesitated, his face serious. There's an old facility. A lab. It's where everything started. The files are hidden there. It's not far from here, but it's heavily guarded. Adam didn't hesitate. We need to go there. Now. Samuel looked at him. It's dangerous. You can't go in unprepared. You have to be ready for what you'll find. This isn't just about stopping them, it's about uncovering the truth about your father and your mother's past. Adam nodded, determined. I don't care what I have to face. I need to know the truth. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect myself, and my family. Samuel gave him a grim look. You'll need more than just courage. You'll need allies, weapons, and a plan. The facility is not just guarded by people. It's surrounded by technology, cameras, and traps. But I'll help you get in. And once we're inside, you'll have to move fast. Adam clenched his fists. Let's do this. The two of them left the cabin, the weight of their mission heavy in the air. It was going to be the hardest journey of Adam's life, but he had no choice. The answers were out there, and he was determined to find them. The journey to the facility took hours. The forest thinned as they moved deeper into the wilderness. And soon, they could see the silhouette of a large building in the distance. It was a dark, imposing structure that seemed to stretch toward the sky, hidden in the middle of nowhere. Adam's heart raced. This was it. The place that held the secrets of his mother's life. The place that could finally answer the questions that had haunted him for so long. "We need to be careful," Samuel whispered. "The guards will be on high alert tonight. We can't afford to make a sound." They crouched behind some bushes, observing the perimeter of the facility. Armed guards patrolled the area, their flashlights sweeping back and forth. There were cameras on every corner, and a large gate sealed off the entrance. "How are we supposed to get past this?" Adam whispered. Samuel studied the situation, his eyes narrowing. "There's a side entrance, hidden in the back. We'll need to move fast and avoid the patrols. Follow my lead." Adam nodded, determined but nervous. This was it. There was no turning back now. They moved silently through the shadows, the crunch of leaves beneath their feet the only sound. Adam's breath came in shallow gasps as they approached the back of the building. Every step felt like it could be their last, but they made it to the hidden entrance undetected. Samuel gestured for Adam to stay low as he unlocked the door. It creaked open just enough for them to slip inside. The air inside was cold, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the hallways. Adam's skin prickled. They were inside. The facility was like a maze of hallways and rooms, all dimly lit by flickering lights. Samuel led the way, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. Adam followed closely behind, his heart pounding in his chest. They had to find the files, and fast. Samuel stopped in front of a door that was slightly ajar. "This is it," he whispered. "Behind this door are the answers." Adam nodded, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. With a deep breath, he followed Samuel into the room. The room was filled with old files, some scattered across the floor, others neatly organized in filing cabinets. Adam rushed forward, his hands shaking as he searched through the piles. Suddenly, he found a folder with his mother's name on it. His breath caught in his throat as he opened it. Inside were detailed reports about his father, about the role he had played in the organization, but there was more. There were blueprints of the facility, security systems, and hidden compartments. This was the key to destroying them, destroying the people who had torn his family apart. As Adam studied the files, something caught his eye. One document detailed his father's betrayal. He had been a part of the very group that had hurt Adam's mother, but there was something more sinister hidden within the lines. His father had secretly been working for the enemy, feeding them information. Adam felt his world shift beneath him. His father, the man he had always wanted to find, was not a hero. He was a traitor. Adam's mind raced as he stared at the documents. His father, his hero, had been part of the very organization that had destroyed his mother's life. It didn't make sense. He wanted to scream, but his throat felt tight. His whole life had been built around the idea that his father was a good man. A protector. But now, that image was shattered. "Samuel," Adam whispered, his voice barely audible. "My dad, he betrayed her. He was one of them." Samuel turned slowly, his face unreadable. "I know. I never wanted to tell you. But you had to know the truth. Your father made his choice. But you have the chance to make yours." Adam's hands trembled as he held the papers. The weight of the betrayal crushed him. What did it all mean? Was his father's legacy now tainted forever? Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the hallway. Footsteps. Heavy, quick. Adam's heart skipped a beat. Someone was coming. "We have to go," Samuel hissed, grabbing Adam's arm. "Now." They bolted for the door, but as they reached the hallway, a figure appeared, blocking their path. Adam froze. It was a woman, her face partially hidden by a hood, but her eyes were sharp, alert. "Who are you?" Adam demanded. Taking a step back, the woman stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "I'm someone who can help you. But you need to trust me." The woman's presence was commanding. She didn't seem like an enemy, but in this place, who could tell? She studied Adam and Samuel, her eyes flickering to the documents Adam held. "You have the files, I see," she said quietly. I know where the rest of the information is hidden, and I can get you there. But you must trust me. Adam's mind was spinning. A part of him was suspicious. How could he trust anyone in a place like this? But then again, they were running out of time. How do we know you're not working for them? Samuel asked, his voice tense. The woman's eyes softened. Because I've been trying to stop them too. I was once a part of their operations, but I left when I saw what they were doing to families like yours. I'm on your side. Adam looked at Samuel, silently asking for advice. Samuel hesitated, then nodded. We don't have a choice. We need her help. The woman led them through the maze of hallways, her steps sure and swift. Adam felt a flicker of hope. For the first time since his mother's death, he felt like he might actually be able to finish what she started. The woman knew more than anyone about the facility, and she was taking them to the next hidden location, a vault that contained the final pieces of the puzzle. They arrived at a door at the end of a long corridor. The woman gestured to it. This is it. Samuel nodded. We're going in. But remember, once we open this, we're in. Adam turned the handle, the cold metal sending a shiver through him. The door creaked open, revealing a dark room, lined with rows of computers and old files. This is where everything started, the woman said. This is where the truth about your family's involvement, and your future, will be revealed. Adam stepped into the room, his heart pounding. Everything was about to change. As Adam stepped deeper into the darkened room, the glow of computer screens lit up the space. The walls were lined with shelves filled with files. Some of them marked with familiar names, names he had heard in passing, but never thought to question. Names of people involved in his family's secret past. His head spun as he scanned the room, wondering how much more of his mother's hidden life was buried here. We need to act fast, the woman whispered, her voice tense. They'll know we're here soon. Adam's fingers hovered over the keyboard of an old computer, the keys dusty but functional. His heart raced as he tried to access the files. How do you know all this? He asked, glancing at the woman. Because I used to work for them. But I'm not one of them anymore. I've been trying to stop this from the inside for years. Your mother. She was part of something bigger. And now it's up to you to finish it. Adam was confused. What do you mean, finish it? I don't understand. The woman stepped closer, her voice low. Your mother was working with a group, secretly trying to dismantle the organization from within. But she couldn't do it alone. She was too close to the people in power. And then she disappeared. Adam's eyes widened. She disappeared. But I thought she died of natural causes. The woman shook her head. No. She was killed because she knew too much. But before she died, she left clues, clues that only someone with the right connection could follow. She was trying to protect you. And now, it's your turn. Adam's heart pounded as the weight of her words sank in. His mother's death wasn't an accident. It was part of something bigger, something dangerous. She had died protecting him, protecting the truth. And now, the burden had passed to him. Are you sure I'm the one who can do this? Adam asked, his voice shaking. I don't even know where to begin. The woman nodded. You've already taken the first step by coming here. The rest is in these files. Everything you need to know is right in front of you. He looked down at the screen in front of him. The files were encrypted, but with the woman's help, he was able to access the hidden data. The truth about his father, his mother, and the dark web of corruption his family had been involved in was all laid bare. The more Adam read, the harder it became to process. His mother had been involved with a network that manipulated people for profit, orchestrating schemes that ruined lives. But she had secretly tried to expose the truth, putting herself and her family at risk in the process. And then, there it was, a file with a single name that stopped him cold. Your father. The words on the screen flickered before his eyes. The woman leaned in. This file is crucial. It's the missing piece. Your father was more than just part of the organization, he was one of their leaders. But he began to regret his actions. He wanted to make amends, but it was too late. Adam's head spun as he tried to process the new information. So, my father knew the truth all along. And he didn't tell me. The woman's expression softened. He was trying to protect you, Adam. But he made mistakes. Now, it's your turn to decide whether you'll carry his legacy, or destroy it. Adam stood frozen, staring at the file. His father, his hero, was involved in all of this. But now, it seemed like the man had been trying to make things right. It was almost too much to handle. He glanced at the woman. What do we do now? We expose everything, she said, her voice steady. We make sure the world knows the truth. You can stop what your father couldn't finish. But it won't be easy. There will be people who will try to stop you. Just as the woman finished speaking, the door behind them slammed open. Footsteps. Heavy, determined. They had been discovered. Time's up, the woman said, grabbing Adam by the arm. We need to leave. Now. Panic surged through Adam's chest. He didn't know where to go, what to do, but he knew one thing: he couldn't stop now. He had come this far, and the truth had to be exposed. He followed the woman down the narrow hallway, every step echoing in the silence of the facility. They rushed through the hallways, the sounds of footsteps growing louder behind them. Adam's heart hammered in his chest. The tension was unbearable, every second feeling like an eternity. The woman led them to a service elevator, and they ducked inside. Just as the first wave of security arrived, the elevator doors slid shut with a soft click. Adam breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew it wasn't over yet. Where are we going? He asked, still catching his breath. To a safe house, the woman replied, her voice calm but urgent. We'll figure out our next move there. But we have to stay hidden for now. There are people who want to stop us. The safe house was a small, nondescript apartment in a quiet part of town. The woman had her own connections, and she made sure they were well hidden for the time being. Adam collapsed onto the couch, his mind still racing with everything he had uncovered. We need to get the rest of the files, the woman said. There's more to this than you realize. Adam nodded, exhausted but resolute. He knew that this was just the beginning. The truth had to come out. He was ready to fight for it. Days passed in the small, quiet apartment. Adam lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything he had learned. The truth about his parents, the betrayal, the secrets. Was he ready for this? Could he really expose everything and bring down the powerful organization that had caused so much pain? What if I'm not strong enough? Adam whispered to himself, his voice barely audible in the dark. The woman's voice came from the doorway. You don't have to be strong alone. You have allies, Adam. People who want to see this end, just like you. Adam turned to see her silhouette in the dim light. But it's my choice now, isn't it? His voice cracked with the weight of the decision. My family's legacy, my future. It's all on me. She nodded solemnly. It's all on you. But that doesn't mean you have to carry it alone. The next morning, Adam woke up early, determined. He couldn't afford to doubt himself anymore. His mother's death, his father's betrayal, everything had led him here. To this moment. He had to finish what they started. He met with the woman in the kitchen, where she was making coffee. I'm ready, he said. We need to expose everything. Now. She nodded, setting the coffee down and pulling out a stack of files. There's one more piece of the puzzle we need to find. It's hidden in an old facility. If we can get to it, we'll have everything we need to take them down. Adam's heart raced. This was it. The final step. The woman handed Adam a map, marking a location on it. This is where we need to go. It's an old facility where they keep their most sensitive information. No one's been able to get in for years, but with the right approach, we can. Adam studied the map, taking in every detail. His mind was focused, the fear from before replaced with determination. How do we get in? I've got a plan, she replied, a glint of resolve in her eyes. But we have to move quickly. We don't have much time. The facility was on the outskirts of town, hidden behind layers of security. Adam and the woman moved carefully, sticking to the shadows as they approached. Every step felt like it could be their last. They reached the building's exterior, where the woman skillfully disabled the security system, allowing them to slip inside undetected. Once inside, Adam's senses were heightened. The cold, sterile air of the building felt oppressive. They moved through the dark corridors, every creak and whisper of the old building making Adam's heart beat faster. "This way," the woman whispered, leading him down a narrow hall. Adam's mind raced. The truth was just beyond reach. He could almost feel it. At the end of the hall, they found a steel door, reinforced and locked. The woman pulled out a small device, attaching it to the door's security panel. It beeped quietly as it worked its magic. Adam could feel the tension building. "Are you sure this will work?" he asked, his voice tight. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she focused on the door. With a final beep, the lock clicked open, and the door slowly swung inward. Behind it, a room full of servers and data storage units awaited. This was it. This was where everything they needed was stored. They hurried into the room, and Adam's eyes landed on a massive computer. The woman began typing furiously, accessing files with expert speed. Adam stood nearby, watching, his heart pounding in his chest. "This is it," she said, her voice filled with determination. "Once we get this information, we can bring them down for good." Adam couldn't help but wonder how much his life would change once this was over. Would he be able to live with the weight of what he had uncovered? Would he be able to find peace? Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. Adam spun around, his heart racing. The woman's expression had changed, her face now masked with cold resolve. "What's going on?" Adam demanded, his voice shaking. The woman's lips curled into a smile that sent chills down Adam's spine. "You thought I was helping you, didn't you?" Adam's blood ran cold as the truth hit him like a ton of bricks. She had been playing him all along. Before Adam could react, the woman lunged toward him, a gun gleaming in her hand. "I'm sorry, Adam," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But you're too dangerous now. You know too much." Adam's mind raced, looking for an escape. He wasn't going to let her win. Not after everything he had been through. He lunged at her, knocking the gun from her hand. The two struggled in the darkness, the tension between them palpable. Finally, with a burst of energy, Adam managed to disarm her. He grabbed the files from the computer, stuffing them into a bag. "I'm done playing your game," he growled. As he turned to leave, the woman's voice echoed in the dark room. "This isn't over, Adam. You can't run from the truth forever." Adam didn't stop running until he reached the front exit of the building. He could hear the woman's shouts growing fainter behind him, but he didn't look back. His mind was focused only on escaping with the information that could change everything. As he made it to the street, he spotted Samuel waiting in a car. Adam jumped in without hesitation. "Did you get it?" Samuel asked, his eyes scanning the road nervously. Adam nodded, his face grim. "We've got everything we need." But even as he said the words, Adam knew deep down that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of the real battle. Adam sat in the car, gripping the files tightly in his hands. His mind raced with what he had just learned. The woman's betrayal was still fresh, but now wasn't the time to dwell on that. He had to focus on what came next. Samuel glanced over at him, sensing the weight on Adam's shoulders. "What now?" he asked quietly. Adam exhaled, staring out the window. "We need to get these files to someone who can help us take them down. Someone we can trust." Samuel nodded. "Do you have anyone in mind?" Adam thought for a moment. He had spent years in the dark, unsure of who to trust. But now, the choice was clear. There was only one person who had the skills to help them, Lena. She was an old friend, a hacker who had always stayed under the radar. If anyone could help them expose the powerful people behind this organization, it was her. The drive to Lena's hideout took longer than Adam expected. They had to be careful, avoiding any roads that might be under surveillance. As they pulled up to an unmarked building on the edge of town, Adam felt a rush of hope. This could be the turning point. Samuel parked the car and turned to Adam. "Are you sure she's still in contact with you?" Adam nodded. Lena has always had my back. If she's still out there, she'll help us. They got out of the car and approached the building cautiously. The door was locked, but after a few moments, a shadow appeared behind a small window. A low voice called out, "Who's there?" "It's Adam," he replied. "I need to see Lena. It's urgent." The shadow disappeared, and a moment later, the door clicked open. Lena stood there, her dark eyes scanning them both. She looked the same, sharp, focused, and always aware of her surroundings. "What's going on?" she asked, pulling them inside. Adam didn't waste any time. He handed her the bag with the files. "We need your help. There's an organization that's been covering up some terrible truths. These files, everything's in here. We need you to help us expose it all." Lena's eyes flicked over the files, and she raised an eyebrow. "This is big, Adam. You've got no idea what you're up against." "I know," Adam said quietly. "But I can't do this alone. We can't do this alone." Lena took the files and started scanning through them. Her fingers moved quickly over the paper, and her face grew serious as she flipped through the documents. "This is worse than I thought," she murmured. "This is going to shake things up in ways you can't even imagine." For hours, Lena worked through the files, analyzing each piece of information. Adam and Samuel sat nearby, trying to keep their nerves in check. Adam kept wondering if they were on the verge of something massive, or if they were stepping into a trap. Finally, Lena set the files down and turned to them. "I've got a plan," she said. "But it's risky. We'll need to leak these documents to the press, but we have to make sure the right people get them. If we just hand them over blindly, we could end up making things worse." Adam listened intently. "What do we need to do?" Lena pulled out a laptop and began typing. "I'll set up a secure connection with a journalist I trust. They'll handle the distribution, but we'll need to keep our tracks covered. This has to be clean, no one can know we're involved." Adam nodded. "We'll do whatever it takes." The night was quiet, but the tension in the room was palpable. Lena worked fast, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She spoke in low tones as she typed, setting up encryption and ensuring everything was secure. Adam watched her work, his heart beating in his chest. Once the documents were sent, there would be no going back. The truth would be out, and the powerful people they were up against would stop at nothing to silence them. Finally, Lena hit enter. The documents were sent. "Done," she said, leaning back in her chair. "Now we wait." The next day, the world began to shift. The news stories were everywhere, shocking revelations about corruption, betrayal, and the organization that had manipulated everything from the shadows. The public was outraged, and protests started to break out in the streets. Adam sat in front of the TV, watching the chaos unfold. Part of him felt relief, knowing that the truth was finally out. But another part of him couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. The people behind the organization wouldn't just go down without a fight. Samuel looked at Adam, concern in his eyes. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Adam nodded. "Yeah. We've started a chain reaction, but now we need to see it through." The phone rang late that night. Adam's heart skipped a beat as he answered. "It's Lena," the voice on the other end said, her voice tight with urgency. "You need to get out of there. They know who you are. They're coming for you." Adam's blood ran cold. The enemy was closing in. The powerful people who had been behind everything, who had tried to silence him and his mother, weren't going to let this go. They would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. "What do we do?" Adam asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Head to the safe house. I'll send you the coordinates," Lena replied. "And be careful. They'll be watching." Adam hung up the phone, his mind racing. "We have to go. Now." The car sped down dark streets, with Adam, Samuel, and Lena in the back seat. They had to get to the safe house as quickly as possible. Adam's hands clenched the seat as they swerved through the streets, narrowly avoiding other cars. Behind them, headlights flashed in the distance, getting closer. "They're coming," Samuel said, his voice tense. Adam turned to Lena, who was typing rapidly on her phone. Do you have any idea who they sent after us? He asked. Lena glanced up, her face grim. It's them, the people I warned you about. They'll stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. We can't let them catch us. After what felt like an eternity, they finally arrived at the safe house, a small, nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. They rushed inside, locking the door behind them. Adam exhaled, trying to steady his racing heart. We're safe. For now. But as they settled in, Adam knew the fight was far from over. The battle for truth was just beginning, and they were now marked targets. But they weren't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The safe house was quiet, almost too quiet. Adam sat by the window, his eyes scanning the streets outside. The city was bustling with its usual rhythm, but Adam knew better than to trust the calm. They were still being hunted, and the shadows they hid in could only protect them for so long. Samuel, who had been pacing the room, finally sat down across from Adam. We can't just sit here forever. They're coming for us. I can feel it. Lena, who had been going over their next steps on her laptop, didn't look up. We don't have a choice. Right now, staying hidden is our best bet. We need time to plan our next move, and that means staying low. Trust me, we're not safe out there. Adam nodded but couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in his chest. The world was changing fast, and they had to be ready for what came next. The fight wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore, it was about survival. The television flickered on as Adam, Samuel, and Lena sat around the room, still trying to figure out their next move. The news anchor's voice echoed through the room, instantly drawing their attention. Breaking news. Investigative reports have uncovered a massive network of corruption involving several high-profile organizations, including the one linked to the recent deaths of numerous whistleblowers. The public is demanding justice as more information is revealed. Adam's heart raced. The world was watching now, and with it, the eyes of their enemies. He didn't know whether to feel relieved that their story was getting out, or terrified at what might happen next. They've already started fighting back, Lena muttered, her eyes narrowing as she watched the screen. Expect the worst. It didn't take long for the first attack to come. They had just begun to discuss their next steps when there was a sharp knock at the door. Samuel jumped up, his hand instinctively going to his waist where a weapon rested. Stay down, Lena whispered, her eyes scanning the room for anything that could be used for defense. The knock came again, louder this time. Adam, a voice called from outside. I know you're in there. Open up. It's important. Adam hesitated. He didn't recognize the voice, but there was something about it that felt familiar. He glanced at Lena and Samuel, who both seemed to sense the danger too. They could be walking into a trap, but then, the voice spoke again. I'm not alone. We need to talk. There's no time. It wasn't until the door opened a crack that Adam realized the person on the other side wasn't here to hurt them. But still, he was cautious. The man standing outside was tall and unshaven, wearing a long coat and dark sunglasses. His eyes were hidden, but there was something about the way he stood that made Adam uneasy. He didn't seem like a typical enemy, but Adam had learned long ago that nothing was ever as it seemed. Who are you? Adam asked, not lowering his guard. The man gave a small smile, as if amused by Adam's suspicion. You don't know me, but I know you. My name is Vincent. Vincent who? Samuel demanded. You just show up at our door, and we're supposed to trust you. Vincent held up his hands in mock surrender. I understand your concern. But I'm not here to hurt you. In fact, I'm here to offer help. Lena, who had been listening from the shadows, stepped forward. What kind of help? I've been tracking the same people you're up against, Vincent said, his voice low. And I have information that could be crucial to your next steps. But I need your trust. Adam exchanged a glance with Samuel and Lena. Trust was a rare commodity right now, but something about Vincent's demeanor suggested he wasn't lying. Still, they needed more proof before making any decisions. Vincent's offer was straightforward. He had insider information about the people behind the corruption they were fighting, information that could help them take down the entire operation. But there was a catch. the people Vincent worked with weren't exactly good guys. They operated in a gray area, and Vincent was no exception. "You want us to work with criminals?" Samuel asked, his tone skeptical. "That's your plan?" Vincent nodded. "Sometimes, the only way to beat the bad guys is by using their own tactics. I can provide you with the resources. But you'll need to decide if you're willing to go down that path." Adam didn't answer right away. The idea of working with shady allies didn't sit well with him, but the stakes were too high. The enemy was far too powerful. They had no choice but to accept help from any source they could find, especially if it meant exposing the truth once and for all. "I'll do it," Adam said, his voice firm. "We'll do whatever it takes." Lena and Samuel exchanged looks, both of them understanding the gravity of Adam's decision. There was no turning back now. The next few days were a blur. Adam, Samuel, Lena, and Vincent began working together, but things weren't as easy as they had hoped. Vincent's friends were scattered across the city, each of them a piece of a larger puzzle. Getting their cooperation meant diving deeper into the underworld of corruption, where everyone had their own agenda. Still, with Vincent's help, they were able to uncover more about the organization they were fighting. It was bigger, more dangerous, and more connected than Adam had ever imagined. The more they learned, the more they realized that no one, no matter how powerful, was safe from the truth. As they gathered more information, Adam couldn't help but wonder if he was becoming someone he didn't recognize. Was he still fighting for justice, or had he crossed a line from which there was no return? As the weeks passed, Adam and his team uncovered a staggering amount of information. Each piece brought them closer to their goal, but also made them more vulnerable. The more they exposed, the more they attracted the attention of those who had the power to crush them. One evening, as they gathered to go over their latest findings, a loud crash interrupted their meeting. The door flew open, and armed men stormed in, guns drawn. "Get down!" Samuel shouted, pushing Adam to the floor. The room erupted into chaos as bullets flew. Adam's heart pounded in his chest, but he didn't have time to panic. He grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her to the ground with him. There was no more time for hesitation. This was the moment where everything would change. The fight for survival had begun. The sound of shattering glass and heavy footsteps filled the room. Adam could barely make sense of the chaos. His heart raced, and his mind screamed at him to move. But where? Lena scrambled to her feet, grabbing for the weapons they had kept hidden under the table. Samuel had already leaped into action, knocking over chairs for cover as bullets ricocheted off the walls. Adam could feel the tension in the air. Something wasn't right. The attackers weren't just after them, they were after something, someone specific. Adam's gaze locked onto the figure at the door, Vincent. His mouth went dry as Vincent stood there, a gun in his hand, his face expressionless. "You!" Adam shouted, his voice barely audible over the commotion. "You led them here." Vincent's cold eyes met Adam's, and for a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Then, without a word, he turned and left, disappearing into the night. "Damn it!" Samuel cursed, running toward the door. "We've been played." The attack was over as quickly as it had begun. But the damage was done. Vincent had betrayed them, and they were now even more exposed than before. "We have to find him," Adam said, his voice low and determined. He was angry, angrier than he had ever been, but he knew they couldn't afford to waste time. They had to track Vincent down, find out who he was really working for, and expose the truth once and for all. Lena nodded, her face pale. "We need to move fast. Whoever Vincent is working for, they won't stop until we're gone." Samuel, already putting on his jacket, gritted his teeth. "Let's go. We can't let him get away with this." The chase was on, and there was no turning back now. Hours passed as they tracked down every lead Vincent had left behind. They followed his trail through dark alleys, hidden warehouses, and underground tunnels. The city felt different now, more hostile, as if it had turned its back on them. Eventually, they found themselves in an abandoned building at the edge of town. It was dark and cold, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the empty halls. "Do you hear that?" Lena whispered, her eyes scanning the shadows. Adam stopped, straining to listen. A faint sound reached his ears, voices, muffled but growing louder. Someone was here, and it wasn't just Vincent. They weren't alone. Adam's heart skipped a beat as the door at the end of the hallway creaked open. He signaled to Samuel and Lena to stay back, then moved toward the door, his pulse quickening. They were close now. When Adam pushed open the door, the room inside was dimly lit. At the far end of the room, Vincent stood with his back to them, speaking to a group of people. Their faces were obscured, but Adam could feel the weight of their presence. "We've been waiting for you." Vincent's voice echoed in the room. Adam's throat went dry as the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Vincent hadn't just betrayed them. He had been working with the people they were trying to expose all along. "What have you done?" Adam asked, his voice barely a whisper. Vincent turned around, and for the first time, a hint of emotion flickered across his face. "I'm sorry. But this was bigger than you, bigger than all of us. You never understood the cost of what you were doing. But I did." Adam took a step forward. "So, you've been lying to us from the beginning?" Vincent didn't answer right away. Instead, he nodded slowly, his expression a mix of regret and resignation. "I didn't want to be part of this world, but sometimes you don't get to choose. You get dragged in." Suddenly, one of the shadowy figures in the back of the room stepped forward. It was a woman, her face hard and emotionless. "Enough talking," she said, her voice like ice. "The time for decisions is over. You're either with us, or you're in our way." Adam's mind raced as he weighed his options. He had always believed in fighting for justice, but now he was faced with a terrifying truth. If he wanted to bring the corrupt system down, he'd have to fight against not just Vincent and his new allies, but the entire network that controlled everything. The stakes were higher than ever. Lena whispered urgently from behind him. "We can't trust them, Adam. This is their game now. We need to find a way out." Samuel's voice, filled with determination, added, "We can't give up. Not now." Vincent's eyes flickered between Adam and his friends, his jaw tightening. "You think you can walk away from this? There's no going back." Adam clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. "Then I guess it's time to make my own choice." With no time to waste, Adam, Lena, and Samuel made a quick decision. They couldn't stay here, they needed to get out. But they also knew they couldn't leave empty-handed. They had to gather the evidence they'd worked so hard to uncover. Lena moved quickly, her fingers flying over the laptop. "I've got the files we need," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. Samuel picked up a bag and tossed it to her. "Let's move, now." Adam was the last to turn away, but not before he shot one last look at Vincent. "You don't have to do this, Vincent," he called out, but Vincent only lowered his head, unable to meet Adam's eyes. The choice had been made. As they exited the building, a storm began to brew in the distance. The wind howled, and thunder rumbled above. Adam couldn't help but feel that the storm was a warning, a signal that things were about to get much worse. The city had changed. It felt like every corner held a new threat. And each shadow seemed to be hiding something far more dangerous than before. Adam, Lena, and Samuel knew the final showdown was inevitable. The fight was no longer about uncovering secrets, it was about survival. They couldn't hide forever. They had to confront the people who had been pulling the strings from the shadows, the people who had made their lives a living nightmare. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. The clock was ticking. The truth they'd fought for was now in the public eye, but with that came enemies who would stop at nothing to silence them. Adam had one goal now, to finish what he started and bring justice to the people who had been destroyed by the system. The final confrontation was close. It was time to face the people who had destroyed their lives, and take them down once and for all. But Adam knew one thing for sure, this fight would either make or break them. There could be no turning back. The streets felt emptier now. The city that once pulsed with life now seemed eerily quiet, as if everyone had sensed the inevitable confrontation approaching. Adam could almost feel the weight of every second ticking by. The files were out, the truth was exposed, but the enemy was still out there, watching, waiting. "We have to be careful," Lena warned, glancing over her shoulder. "They're not going to let this slide. They'll come for us." Adam nodded, his heart heavy. I know. But we've come this far. We can't back down now. Samuel, ever the optimist, gave a wry grin. They've underestimated us every step of the way. Let's make sure they don't make that mistake again. With their resolve firm, they moved forward, knowing that the final pieces of their plan were coming together. It was time to finish what they had started, as they entered an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Adam felt the familiar weight of uncertainty. The tension between them was palpable, but it was tempered by a shared understanding. This was the endgame. Lena led the way, her eyes sharp as she searched for something among the dusty crates. She stopped at a corner and turned to them. I think I found it, she said, pulling out a small, sleek device from a hidden compartment. What is that? Samuel asked, his voice low. It's our ticket, Lena replied, holding the device up to the light. This is what we need to take down their entire network. It's got everything, the names, the money trails, the connections. Everything. Adam's pulse quickened. This was the final piece. With this, they could expose the full extent of the corruption and bring it crashing down. Let's get this to the right hands, Adam said, his voice determined. We've come too far to fail now. Just as they were about to leave the warehouse, a sharp noise echoed from the entrance. The unmistakable sound of footsteps, too many to count. Adam spun around, his heart sinking. It's them. They've found us. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Adam's breath caught in his throat. It was Vincent. I told you, Vincent said quietly, his voice carrying a weight of regret. You should have stayed out of it. Adam's chest tightened. You're still with them, aren't you? Vincent's eyes hardened. I never left. I never had a choice. But something in Vincent's expression faltered, and Adam noticed a flicker of doubt. The betrayal ran deep, but so did the inner conflict Vincent had carried. We can stop this, Adam said, his voice softer now. You don't have to follow them anymore. You can still choose a different path. For a moment, the two locked eyes, and Adam thought, just for a second, that Vincent might actually believe him. But then, the sharp sound of a gun cocking shattered the silence. The tension in the air was thick, and it seemed like time had slowed to a crawl. Adam could feel the cold sweat on his skin, but his focus remained sharp. Vincent's grip on the gun tightened. But he hesitated. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the back of the warehouse. Figures emerged from the shadows, armed and determined. They were here. The final battle was upon them. Run! Lena shouted, grabbing Adam's arm. This way! Without thinking, Adam bolted forward, adrenaline surging through his veins. They had one shot at getting out alive. The sound of boots pounding on the concrete followed them as they dashed through the maze of narrow hallways. The entrance was just ahead, but they had no idea if they could make it there before the gunfire started. Behind them, Vincent's voice rang out one last time. You're not getting away this time. They burst through the exit. Into the cold night air, with the echoes of gunshots trailing behind them. Adam didn't dare look back. He could feel the weight of the files in his hands. This was it. They had everything they needed, but there was still one final challenge. The streets were empty, but Adam knew they were being hunted. Vincent and his men weren't far behind. Lena pointed toward a car parked a few blocks away. There. We can make it. But as they reached the car, a sudden screech of tires cut through the silence. Another vehicle appeared, blocking their way. This is it, Samuel said, his voice calm but strained. We need to make our stand. Adam turned to them, his heart pounding in his chest. We have to fight. For everything we've worked for. The final battle had begun. The gunfire rang out as Adam and his friends returned fire. Their world had shifted from shadows to gunfire in an instant. Every second felt like an eternity. They were outnumbered, but they had something their enemies didn't: determination. In the chaos, Adam's mind raced. They were so close, but could they actually win? Could they really take down the empire that had ruled their lives for so long? Vincent, still caught in his internal struggle, hesitated once again. He stood at the edge of the chaos, his eyes darting between Adam and the attackers. It was then that Adam realized something. Vincent had a choice. He could still stop this, Vincent. Adam shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. It's not too late. Vincent's gaze shifted, and for a heartbeat, Adam saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Suddenly, Vincent dropped his gun. It clattered to the ground, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. Everyone froze. Even the attackers paused, confused. Adam's heart skipped a beat. Had Vincent made his choice, then, in a single motion, Vincent turned toward the attackers, raising his hands. Stop. This fight ends now. The enemy leader, a towering figure known only as the Director, glared at Vincent. You think you can walk away from this? Vincent didn't flinch. I've already walked away. The sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder by the second. Police cars arrived, followed by ambulances and SWAT teams. The scene unfolded in a blur. The enemy forces, once so sure of themselves, were now in disarray. Adam and his friends stood back, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. They had done it. They had won. Vincent, his face drawn and weary, stepped toward Adam. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't think I could ever get out. But now I see, there's always a way. Adam nodded, his own voice hoarse. We all have a choice. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to see it. As the authorities took control of the scene, Adam, Lena, and Samuel walked away. Their steps heavy but determined. They had brought down a powerful network, but the fight for justice was never truly over. There would always be more battles, more lies to expose, more choices to make, but for now, they could finally rest. They had made a difference. As the sun rose over the city, Adam stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the skyline. The world had changed, and so had he. He had uncovered the truth, faced betrayal, and fought for everything he believed in, but now, he knew there was something more important than the fight itself. It was about making the right choice. The future was uncertain, but Adam was ready for whatever came next. He had made his stand. And now, it was time for a new beginning.